Well, hey folks, welcome to Solar Cabin Channel. And the discussion today is, can you live without money? Cash, greenbacks. In the U.S., our money looks like this with funky presidents' heads on it. Your cash or money in your country may look different than this. Now, that's a big question. Can you live without money? My answer is yes, but it's difficult to do. But I'm going to show you some ways that you can greatly reduce the amount of money that you need in your life. And that was my focus when I went off grid, was to reduce it to an amount that it was not an important factor in my living. It was no longer my reason for getting up in the morning, was to make money so that I could pay for the things to survive. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about here is 6 steps that anyone can take wherever you live, whether you're off grid or on grid or wherever you live, to greatly reduce the amount of money you need. Now, the first one that I would talk about is you need to own your own home. Now, when I say home, I'm flexible on that. It may be a van, it may be a camper, it may be a cabin like mine that I built for $2,000. You need to own your own home. If you don't have house payments and rent, you've already eliminated about 50% of the money that you're going to need each month and each year. So just by owning your home, you've eliminated about 50% of the money that you're going to need. So I'm going to fold that right up to there. That's about 50%. So I've just eliminated 50% of the money that I need in order to survive by owning my own cabin. Now the next step that you want to take, you want to eliminate your utility bills. Utility bills are probably another 50% of the amount of money that everybody pays. Some places utility bills are even more than house payments and rent. But on average, you're going to spend about another 50% of whatever money you make for utilities. So I'm going to fold this in half again to about right there. And just by eliminating your house payment and your utility bills, you've greatly reduced the amount of money that you have. Now, I did this here on my place by installing solar. My solar was not expensive. My system is only about 800 watts. Today, you can get that for less than about $1,000 installed. And that was an investment. If I was to be connected to the grid, it would probably cost me right around $300 a month for utility bills. So by reducing that, I've reduced a huge amount of money in house payments and utility bills that I need for cash already. Just those 2 things. Even if you just do those 2 things, you're greatly reducing how much money that you're going to need in your life. Okay. Now the others are a little bit harder to do. So I'll tell you straight up, it's harder for most people to eliminate these in their life, but you can still reduce them. And next would be to own your transportation that doesn't cost anything. This is a little easier in the city for people that can walk or bike to get the things that they need. If you're in a community where anything that you need is close by, it might be easier for you to eliminate having a car, anything that uses gas, anything that needs insurance, license, registration, maintenance, all those things. You can eliminate all those if you have some type of free transportation. Now, in my case, I live about 10 miles from a small store. I live about 15 miles from the town. And so I needed some type of vehicle, especially in winter, to get back and forth. So I still needed a car or a truck for a long time. However, lately I've reduced that a lot by getting myself an e-bike. So that at least when the weather is good, I can charge up my e-bike free from my free solar power, and I can ride that to town to get whatever supplies I need. Now, I still do have a car as a backup so that when I need to go to town, especially in winter, or if the weather's really bad or something like that, I can't ride the e-bike, I still need a car. But if you're able to eliminate your transportation, or at least greatly reduce it so you don't need to use it very often. Maybe you can get by with an e-bike or a regular bicycle, or maybe you can walk a lot more. If you reduce that so that maybe you can car share and carpool with somebody, then you can greatly reduce the amount of transportation costs that you have. And that's probably another 50% of your expenses right there. So now you're down to just this small amount of money that you're going to need in your life. Now, the other expenses you're probably going to have are even harder to eliminate. That is producing your own food and clothing. Here at my cabin, I don't even attempt to try to produce all my own food. I do raise a garden every year. I have raised chickens. I've raised rabbits. I used to do hunting. I don't hunt anymore. I do fish during fishing season to supplement my food, but I'm probably only producing maybe at most 10% of the food that I need. The rest I buy from a grocery store just like you do. But if you want to and you have the land to do it, you could produce a big portion. I say most people could probably produce about 50% of their food if you raise a large garden, if you have fruit trees, if you raise chickens, rabbits, goats, if you need milk. You could eliminate a large portion of your food, about 50%. you could eliminate another section of the cash that you have if you want to do that. Clothing is a lot harder to eliminate unless you're a naturalist and you want to run around naked all the time, which probably isn't feasible in most places. You're probably going to need clothing. Now, for kids and teenagers, they outgrow their clothing fast, and so if you have kids or teenagers, you're going to have a more expense there than the rest of us. I'm an old guy. I don't need new clothing. I'm not trying to impress anybody with my clothing. So if I go and buy some new t-shirts and shorts once a year and get some underwear and socks, I'm pretty good, and I don't spend very much for clothing. So that's a small portion of what I need for my expenses. Now, the other one is harder here for us people in the United States. Now, that is to stay healthy or never need a doctor or have free health care. Now, here in the U.S., we don't have free health care, really. Even though you may have insurance, even if you're low income and you have insurance, you're probably still going to have a deductible, so you're still going to need some cash. Doctors these days are not going to take a chicken to treat you, okay? So you're probably going to need some cash to pay for health care. And depending on your health conditions, that may be a big portion of how much money that you're going to need in your life. Now, some of the benefits of not having a house payment and not having utility bills and having your own transportation and doing gardening and riding a bike and walking more is you're probably going to stay healthier. And if you stay healthier, you probably won't have to go see a doctor. If you're eating healthy food that you produce on your own place and you're riding a bike or you're walking, you're going to stay in better health. So you're probably not going to need to see a doctor as much. And so you're reducing the amount of doctor's visits and things like that cost a lot of money. And so you're going to reduce the amount of money that you need for your health care. Now, some places have free health care. Other countries like in the UK and that, they have free health care. We don't have that here in the United States. If you have free health care, that's a wonderful benefit. Then you're probably not spending out a lot of money, or maybe you're only spending a very small amount for prescriptions or all over-the-counter medicines and things like that. Your healthcare expenses have went way down. Here in the U.S., healthcare expenses are a big portion of the amount of money that we have. Okay, and finally is to have skills or talents for bartering. Now, this is one of the things that I really want to emphasize in this, is that even though you may need some cash, if you have skills or talents. Now, what we're talking about here is something that a skill or a talent that you can barter with other people. And bartering means you're trading something in kind for something else. So let's say that you teach piano lessons, and you teach piano lessons to people, and they trade you in kind for food that they produce or clothing that they have or something else. That would be bartering. You're not being paid in money. Now, if you get paid in money, that's also fine, because then that you use that money, you're basically bartering your skills for the money to pay for the things that you don't produce on your own homesteads. That's how I did it for a long time. I ran a pest control company for many years, and I used to barter and trade my skills as a professional pest control person for the small amount of money that I needed to pay for any bills that I had for health care, for clothing, and food. I traded my skills doing pest control for the small amount of money I needed for expenses I didn't have. I also bartered in exchange for things I needed around my cabin. I would trade my services for windows that I needed for my cabin, materials and lumber. I traded for a stock water tank, traded for a lot of different things, cement blocks, all kinds of things I needed around my off-grid cabin. Instead of taking cash from the people that I would do these services for, I would look around and say, hey, have you got something that maybe we can barter for instead of cash? I like that system, but it doesn't work for everybody, and I still did get paid in cash. I used the cash to pay for whatever expenses I had around my cabin, and because I didn't have very many expenses, I didn't have to make a lot of money, and so by working for myself, I set my own hours, only worked when I wanted to, and I made enough money that I would cover all of my expenses. Plus, because I didn't have a house payment, I didn't have utility bills, I'd eliminated a lot of my other expenses. Any excess money that I was making from my small business, I just put into savings so that I had it in an emergency if I had a health care need or something like that, or if one of my vehicles broke down and I needed a vehicle, I had the money in savings so that I could go pay for the things cash instead of having to go into debt. And that's the most important thing, is don't go into debt. I don't have any credit cards. I don't have any debt. I don't have any loans. I haven't had any in 20 years. So if you have skills or you have talents, now some people paint. Some people paint. Some people make music. Those are talents that you can also use to fund the small amount of money that you need that you can't produce for things that you can't produce on your own homesteads or at your own homes. And it turns out that one of my talents was writing books, and I write books, and I design cabin plans. I've designed lots of cabin plans over the 20 years. I've designed lots of cabin plans. I keep my cabin plans very affordable, and I've included them in ebooks and books, and that helps cover whatever expenses that I have here at my cabin. And if you want to barter instead of using money, always more than happy to barter for whatever you have. If you have something that you think is worth trading for a set of plans or something like that, just contact me. I'm more than willing to barter with people for ebooks and books and stuff for things that I may need at my house, and to make sure people are getting good plans for their off-grid cabins. All right, folks, that is how you can eliminate most of your need for money. And once you do that, once you eliminate your house payments, once you eliminate your utility bills, if you start producing maybe 25-50% of your food on your own homestead, and if you're able to reduce your transportation costs either by walking or biking, the amount of money that you now need is going to be just a small fraction of what you used to spend, and whatever money that you do make is now going to go a lot farther, and you're going to be able to save for something like an emergency. You're going to be able to save for a vacation. You're going to be able to save to take care of your kids and help your kids out. You're going to be able to save for your retirement, which is what I did. All right, folks, I hope this was an interesting video. If you have any questions, put them down there in comments. Please give the video a like. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Have a great day, folks.